So Lindsey Moore is a licensed dietitian at North Kansas City Hospital, and she has a lot of information to give you on how to manage your diabetes through nutrition. So Lindsey, I'll hand it on over to you. Oh, wait, I'm so sorry. We are recording this. It is available on YouTube afterwards. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the chat in the Q&A, and we will answer those at the end. Okay, now it's yours, Lindsey.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Lindsey, and I'm one of the dietitians here at North Kansas City Hospital, and we're going to be talking about diabetes and nutrition. Okay, so first we're going to review the macronutrients. So macronutrients are food that provide us energy or calories. There are three main broad classes of macronutrients, and that is protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And we're going to talk about each of these a little bit more in depth. So first, protein. So protein is going to include any kind of meat, eggs, fish, cheese, and peanut butter. It's really important for the body because it's required for tissue repair, building lean muscle mass, immune system function, and hormone production, along with a lot of other many functions in the body. And then we have fats. So fats are going to be like your oils, your butter, margarine, salad dressing, nuts, and seeds. This is a slow burning source of energy, and we actually need fats in the diet to absorb several vitamins. And then of the three macronutrients, carbohydrates affects our blood glucose or our blood sugar the most. And carbohydrates are going to include your bread, rice, pasta, the ones we typically think of, but it's also going to include our beans, fruit, milk, yogurt, peas, corn, and potatoes, along with a lot of our sweet and snack foods. And the primary function of carbohydrates is to provide energy in the body, especially the brain and nervous system. Each macronutrient does serve a purpose, so we need all three of these in our diet, and any diet that eliminates one of these macronutrients is not a good diet. And really important to note that just because carbohydrates directly affect our blood glucose, it does not mean we should eliminate them from our diet. So what is glucose? Glucose is a form of sugar that is the body's main source of energy. So the body's digestive system breaks down food, specifically carbohydrates, into glucose, and then it travels into our bloodstream and our cells throughout the body. I have a diagram here I really like that kind of helps us understand the absorption of glucose. So that first picture are just type of carbohydrate foods. So when we eat carbohydrates, it goes into that digestive system and breaks down into glucose. Our glucose then travels into our blood, and then with the help of insulin, which is the picture of that key, glucose can enter our cells and be used for energy. But with diabetes, we either don't have enough insulin or insulin isn't working properly, and so the glucose just sits in our blood. And that's where we typically get those high blood sugars. So here are some goals of healthy eating and diabetes. So each day I want you guys to aim for 3 small meals and 1 to 3 snacks spaced evenly apart. The goal is to eat a consistent amount of carbohydrates at each meal. Try not to skip meals and snacks, and have a snack if meals are spaced more than 4 to 5 hours apart. Eat a variety of foods and colors, and select foods high in fiber frequently if you can. I always say there's 2 major takeaways when it comes to nutrition and diabetes. One of which is try to eat every 4 to 5 hours, but the other is pair a carbohydrate with a protein. If you can get a protein and a carbohydrate at all meals and snacks, that's going to be best for your blood sugars. So now we're going to be talking about making wise choices with some of these food groups. So we want to choose complex carbohydrates because they contain more vitamins, minerals, and fiber, but they also digest more slowly, which this is really good because it's going to prevent the peaks and valleys in our blood sugar. So it's not going to shoot up really high and drop really low. So this is going to be like your whole grains, your legumes, fruits, and vegetables. And we want to limit the simple carbohydrates because they have little nutrients and they're highly processed, so they digest really quickly, and that causes rapid spikes in our blood sugars. And so these are going to include foods like your regular soda, candy, fruit juice, syrup, and white bread. Now we're going to talk about fats. So fats, not all fats are created equal. The type of fat you eat actually affects your blood cholesterol. So not blood sugar, blood cholesterol, so more so our heart. The two types of fats are going to be your unsaturated fats and your saturated fats. So unsaturated fats are going to help reduce our risk of heart disease. And these are considered good fats. A good general rule to go by is thinking of fats liquid at room temperature. So really anything that's liquid at room temperature, more so talking about oils, is going to be a good fat. So yeah, oils, nuts, seeds, avocados. And these unsaturated good fats are going to increase our fullness, and this is what helps us absorb several vitamins. But we do want to watch our portion sizes with these guys. Just because they're good for us, we still want to watch out for those portion sizes because they can rack up the calories pretty quickly. And then the saturated and trans fats, this is what increases our risk for heart disease. So these are typically considered the bad fats because they clog our arteries and cause inflammation. They are solid at room temperature. So this is going to be our butter, margarine, whole fat dairy products, and high fat meat. Now we're going to talk about protein. So with protein, we want to choose lean protein. So trying to do 90% lean beef or higher, skinless chicken, pork chops, turkey, really just overall trying to limit the intake of processed meat, like the bacon, bologna, sausage, hot dogs. And if you can, trim the visible fat on the cut of meat, whether it's a steak or a pork chop, and then choose lean cooking methods if you can. So really trying to bake, broil, grill, steam, or poach, and just trying to limit the overall frying. And then another good general rule is trying to choose rounds and loins when it comes to your cut of meat. Those rounds and loins are going to be your most lean cuts. So fiber. So we've mentioned fiber a couple times already, and fiber is going to be really important with diabetes management, not only because it contributes to our digestive health, regulates bowel movements, increases our fullness, controls our blood sugars, but it also lowers our LDL cholesterol, which is our bad cholesterol. So lots of benefits of having fiber in our diet. So really trying to select those high fiber foods frequently. So those whole grains, beans, legumes, fruits, and vegetables is where you're going to find this fiber. The goal for fiber is 25 to 30 grams a day or as tolerated. So feel free to count your fiber if you like. You don't have to. As long as you're getting high fiber foods in, that's going to be good too. But if you are going to increase your fiber, I would highly recommend doing it slowly and drinking plenty of water and getting some sort of movement or physical activity. Just because when we don't have those things and we increase our fiber really quickly, that can lead to constipation or diarrhea, gas, and bloating, and that's no fun. But also consider a Metamucil supplement. It can be a little hard to get all that fiber in, but always talk to your doctor first. Okay, so what we are going to be mainly talking about is carbohydrate requirements. So the carbohydrate amount should be consistent at your meals. And what we're going to do is carbohydrate count. So these are the grams of carbohydrates I want you guys to have for your meal and snacks. And we'll talk about what these numbers mean in relation to actual food and how to count these numbers. But I'd like for you guys to shoot for 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per meal, and then 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrates per snack. So just a little example here to kind of apply some of the things we've talked about already. So if you eat breakfast at 7 a.m., try to have 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. And then if you eat lunch at 12, have another 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. And then if you eat dinner at 6, have 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. And then using that rule of trying to eat every 4 to 5 hours, throw in a snack anytime between your lunch and dinner, since you're going about 6 hours without eating, and just make it 15 to 30. Feel free to also have a bedtime snack. You don't have to wait 4 to 5 hours to eat. Feel free to eat more often than that if you get hungry. We just don't want to go longer than that, because what happens in the body is after 5 hours without eating, our blood sugar drops really low. But then your liver kicks in and starts shooting your blood sugar up really, really high. So going longer than 5 hours can either result in a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar, and that's no fun. So really trying to eat every 4 to 5 hours, keeping our carbohydrates consistent is really going to help keep our blood sugar normal throughout the day. Okay, so how do we determine the carbohydrates in our foods? So food labels are going to be your best friend and the best way to go about this. There's 2 things I want you guys to look at on your food label, and we'll talk about each one of these. The first one is your total carbohydrates in grams. I have it circled down there at the bottom on the left side, total carbohydrates in grams. This is the number that's going to keep us on track with carbohydrate counting. We do not want to look at the percentages, we want to look at the grams. Under your total carbohydrates, it talks about fiber, sugar, it may even say total sugars, added sugars, anything along those lines. Those are all types of carbohydrates, so it's already calculated into the total carbohydrate. If you look at it, and 3 plus 1 is not 11, because there's other types of carbohydrates in the food that aren't listed on the food label. So in terms of carbohydrate counting, just look at that total carbs. Feel free to look at the fiber and the sugar if you would like, but for this purposes, just for total carbohydrate. But I also want you guys to look at the serving size. So up at the top there, it says serving size 1 slice. So I don't want you guys to beat yourselves up about it if you're having more or less than the serving size. We just want to know what they say it is so we know how many carbs we're at. Because sometimes serving sizes can be really big or really tiny. So looking at this example here, it says serving size 1 slice and then total carbohydrates 11. So if we do 1 serving, we're getting 11 grams of carbohydrates. If we were to eat 2 slices, we would get 22 grams of carbohydrates, which is perfectly fine. This would be a good snack right there between 15 and 30. Or you could even have it as a meal and have more carbohydrates since we get 45 to 60. So just a little bit more practice on label reading. I love label reading because whenever in doubt, look at that food label and it's going to get you right on track. So we're going to look at a frozen pizza. That serving size says 1/6 of a pizza. So if you cut this pizza into 6 slices, this is our serving size. And then total carbohydrate 35 grams, which is completely okay since we can have 45 to 60. But that's really not a lot of pizza. So if we have 2 slices, we're already at 70 carbohydrates. So we're a little over on our goal. And then 3 slices puts us at 105. And honestly, eating 3 slices of this pizza or even more than that is not very unrealistic. So we're going to talk about too how to fill us up at meals, but not put us over on our carbohydrates. With this, it's not a carryover plan. So unused grams of carbohydrates do not carry over into the next meal or snack. If you're allowed 45 to 60 grams at breakfast, but you only eat 30 carbs, that does not mean you can carry the additional 15 to 30 over at lunch, because the goal is more consistent carbohydrate intake. Now we're going to talk about the plate method or My Healthy Plate. This is a really great tool I love to use because it helps monitor portion sizes to avoid overeating, but it also helps with carbohydrate consistency. And this is also kind of help us answer the question of what foods to eat if we're at our carb limit, kind of like with that pizza. So I want you guys to try to fill 1/4 of your plate with lean protein at meals if you can. This protein is just going to really help your blood sugar, but it's also going to help keep you full. And then we want to fill about 1/4 of our plate grains. So this is where their bread, rice, pasta goes, but this is also where our peas, corn, and potatoes go. Those 3 starchy vegetables want to go on the 1/4 of our plate. And then make half of your plate vegetables. So really throw in any kind of vegetables you want on there. And if you can, add a serving of fruit. So this is a really great tool to use to kind of help you guide what to have on your plate at meals, but how much you should have. And then to kind of solve the riddle of what foods to have to not put us over with our carbohydrates, that's going to be protein and vegetables. So vegetables, very low minimal carbohydrates. Filling up on those if you're at your carb limit will really keep you full. And then protein. Really any protein besides like beans is going to have no carbohydrates. So filling up on that protein is going to keep you full. Now we're going to talk about beverages. So kind of just rethinking the things we typically drink, really just wanting to watch out for carbohydrates and empty calories in liquid form. This is like our regular soda, juice, sweet tea, lemonade, slushies, and smoothies. We really want to replace these guys with water because water is going to increase our energy, our fullness, and helps relieve constipation. So I want you guys to develop a plan to maintain your fluids, whether that's you start carrying a water bottle around, setting alarms on your phone, or even using a straw to kind of help you drink more. But the goal when it comes to water is about 64 ounces or 8 cups a day. But this doesn't always have to be regular tap water. It can be, you could add Crystal Light, Mio, Propel, Gatorade Zero, lemon, or carbonated water, kind of as a water enhancer that all counts towards your fluids. Okay, so just to kind of look at some of our typical beverages and how many carbohydrates are in them. So a 20-ounce regular soda has 65 grams of carbohydrates, so quite a bit, and we really only want to shoot around 45 to 60, and no beneficial nutrients. And then a 32-ounce regular soda has 105, no beneficial nutrients, and this is typically the size that you find at many fast food restaurants. So really just kind of wanting to be more mindful when it comes to what foods we're putting in our body and how many carbohydrates they have. When it comes to eating out, perfectly fine to eat out and have diabetes. Just a couple different ways we can go about it. Really, we want to think ahead and plan. So the way I like to go about it is looking at the nutrition menus online. So all restaurants have this nutrition information online. If you go online, click the nutrition tab, and look at the carbohydrate content of what you're wanting to eat. So I know some places it pops up like an Excel sheet, or it pops up like a regular food label. But look at how many carbohydrates are in their foods. And so maybe you just want to do half a serving, or you just want to try something different altogether. But if you can, be mindful of those carbohydrates while eating out. Just some other tips to kind of help with that also. Eat the same portion as you do at home. Split an order with a family member or friend, or even take half home. And this is a little cheat sheet I like to help decode the menu. So really trying to avoid some of the high-fat cooking methods. One, because it's not great for our heart, and two, it's often higher in carbohydrates, like the fried, the crispy, scalloped, pan-fried, sauteed, butter, creamed, and stuffed. Trying to choose more of the lower fat, lower carbohydrate cooking methods, like baked, broiled, boiled, steamed, grilled, poached, and roasted. Okay, now we're going to talk about sugar alcohols. So sugar alcohols are one type of reduced calorie sweetener that provides us with half the calories of sugar than other carbohydrates. They are harder on the body to digest, and they still have effect on our blood sugar, but less of an effect on our blood sugar than regular sugar. They usually end in OL, so some of the common sugar alcohols you probably have seen are sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, and erythritol. Even though they're called sugar alcohols, they do not contain alcohol. Talking about these guys a little bit more, so sugar alcohols are often in products such as ice cream, cookies, chewing gum, pudding, candies, and they're labeled sugar-free or no sugar added. But just because it's sugar-free does not mean it's carbohydrate-free. So it's very misleading, and it's an often misconception that all sugar alcohol containing products are free foods. Some of these products still may contain significant amounts of carbohydrates. So there's other type of carbohydrates that's still going to affect our blood sugar besides sugar. So it's really always important to check that nutrition facts label for your total carbohydrate. Along with this, there's often some bad side effects with sugar alcohols. So excessive consumption can lead to gas, bloating, or diarrhea. And some people just honestly prefer to use the regular version of food and then cut back on the portion sizes instead of buying that sugar-free version. Do want to consider the price because often sugar-free versions do cost more. Now we're going to talk about artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, some of the common ones are like your Equal, your Splenda, Sweet One, Sweet and Low, and Stevia. And then listed some of their other common names they're found by. Artificial sweeteners are non-nutritive sweeteners that offer the sweet taste of sugar, but they do not have any carbohydrates or calories, and they do not affect your blood sugar levels, unlike sugar alcohols. And when used in place of sugar at meals or snacks, artificial sweeteners can help you stay within your allotted carbohydrates. But kind of like those sugar alcohols, they can have some side effects, maybe like bloating, gas, or diarrhea. But stevia, out of all your sweeteners, is going to be the most natural option for your sweeteners because it's not artificial. So some people can tolerate this one a little bit more. So I know a lot of times sugar alcohols, artificial sweeteners get very confusing. So this is a little chart to kind of help break it down and compare the two. Sugar alcohols are not the same as artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners have no carbohydrates and do not affect your blood sugar. And sugar alcohols have some carbohydrate and do affect your blood sugar. Okay, so you guys made it to the end. So this is a little summary I made, just really wanting to hone in some of the really main key points that we talked about today. I know we talked about a lot and a lot of information at once, but yeah, here are some of the most important points I'd like for you guys to remember. You also will be getting handouts emailed to you as a really good reference to refer back to the things we talked about today. But the three main macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates directly affect our blood glucose or our blood sugar levels, but this does not mean we can't have them, just smaller portions, really wanting carbohydrate consistency. So try to aim for 3 meals, 1 to 3 snacks a day. Have a snack if meals are spaced more than 4 to 5 hours apart. And we're going to want a carbohydrate count, aiming for 45 to 60 grams of carbs at each meal and 15 to 30 for snacks. If you can, include a lean protein and plenty of non-starchy vegetables with your meals. Choose whole grains and high fiber products for your heart health. And always look at that label. Whenever in doubt, flip it over to that food label. And you guys have already made the first step by being here and wanting to make changes and learn about diabetes, which is very important. But I do want to encourage you guys to remember that change occurs slowly. Really want to encourage you guys to set small, measurable goals that are practical for you and don't expect perfection. Just because if we were to make all these changes all at once, we're not going to be able to maintain that. So want you guys to make changes that you want to make, because that's what's going to help in the long term. And the nice thing about today is everything we talked about and what's healthy for you is also healthy for your family. Take charge of your health because you guys can do this. And what questions do you have? I know we have some already, but feel free to continue sending them in.
Lindsey, that was really, really good. Thank you so much for going over the sugar alcohols, because I
Yeah.
think that is a misconception that's very easy to have.
Yes, it is. And it was even confusing to me at first because I feel like they just get jumbled into the same thing. But yeah, good to be mindful of.
Yes. What do you think would be a perfect snack for somebody with diabetes?
Yeah, so I actually sent a bunch of snack ideas that you guys will be getting over email. It's like 14 snack ideas. But what's a really good snack is something that has carbohydrates, but also has protein. So really a piece of fruit with maybe a boiled egg or, some cheese or nuts or a piece of toast. And you guys are going to be getting all those snack ideas, but my email is linked below. So if you need more snack ideas after this, or you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. So do you think celery with peanut butter might be a pretty good one?
So we're actually going to want to add a little bit more carbohydrates besides celery and peanut butter, just because celery is going to be like 1 gram of carbohydrate. So definitely try to get at least 15. So maybe adding a banana or some crackers and to your celery and peanut butter, then that would be a perfect snack.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we have a question. It says, I am supposed to count total carbs, not net carbs, ?
Correct. So we want to count total carbohydrates. Net carbs it's been popular back in the day and it still is around. We don't want to count net carbohydrates because it's not going to give us an accurate reading of how our blood sugar is affected. So net carbs, what they do is they take the total carbohydrates and subtract the fiber, but the calculation isn't accurate at all. So just to make it easier for you guys, just count your total carbohydrate.
Perfect. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any.
Yeah. Well, if you guys think of anything, feel free to email me or call me. I'm more than happy to answer those.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lindsey. And thank you
Yeah,
everyone for joining us.